The storm had come from nowhere. One moment the sky over the Pacific was a bruised blue, scattered with clouds. The next, it was a churning wall of darkness. Lightning tore the heavens apart, illuminating the small passenger plane as it was tossed like a toy over an endless stretch of water. Inside, screams mingled with the metallic groan of the fuselage. Captain Richard Hale, a veteran pilot with 20 years of flight time, gripped the controls with both hands. His jaw was clenched so hard he tasted blood. Beside him, the co-pilot's voice crackled through static. "Engines 1 and 2 are down. We're losing altitude fast." The passengers in the cabin clung to their seats as the plane shuddered violently. Mara Jensen, a young journalist from Seattle, pressed her forehead against the window. She couldn't see anything, only flashes of light and walls of rain. Somewhere behind her, a baby cried, and a woman's trembling voice whispered prayers. "Brace for impact," Hale shouted. The world became noise and chaos. The ocean rose up to meet them with monstrous force. Then dashed blackness. When Mara opened her eyes, she was lying on wet sand. The sky was no longer black but a ghostly gray. Waves rolled in and out beside her, tugging at her legs like hands unwilling to let go. Her head throbbed. She could taste salt and iron on her lips. Around her, debris from the plane was scattered across the beach: suitcases, torn metal, seat cushions bobbing in the surf. A voice called out faintly, hoarse and desperate, "Hello? Anyone alive?" Mara turned her head and saw a man staggering along the shoreline. His uniform was soaked, the insignia of the U.S. Air Force barely visible. Sergeant Kyle Monroe. He was bleeding from his temple, but his posture was still soldier straight. There were others, too. A middle-aged woman in torn clothes, clutching a child, Lydia Clark, the young mother. A man in a blooded pilot's jacket, Hale, barely conscious. Dr. Owen Reeves, a quiet emergency physician, was kneeling beside him, checking his pulse. And sitting apart from the group, staring blankly at the horizon, was Eli Torres, a college student who had been on his first flight overseas. 6 survivors. No one else moved. By dusk, they had gathered what supplies they could from the wreckage: half-burned flares, a few bottles of water, some granola bars sealed in foil. The storm had moved east, leaving behind a suffocating stillness. The island stretched into the distance, palm trees, thick jungle, and cliffs that cut into the sky. There was no sign of civilization, no smoke, no sound beyond the whisper of waves. They built a small fire from driftwood and scraps of the plane's interior. The flames flickered weakly, casting ghostly shapes across their faces. No one spoke for a long time. The silence was heavier than grief. Finally, Mara whispered, "Someone will come for us. Planes don't just vanish." The doctor looked up from the fire. "Out here, we could be anywhere between Hawaii and the Philippines. The storm must have thrown us hundreds of miles off course." Monroe threw another piece of metal into the flames. Sparks flew upward and vanished. "Then we survive until they find us," he said flatly. "That's what we do." But in the dim light, Mara saw his hands shaking. That night, she couldn't sleep. Every sound in the darkness seemed alive: the crash of distant surf, the rustle of leaves, the strange rhythm of insects. The air was heavy, electric, as if the storm hadn't really ended. Somewhere in the jungle, something moved. It wasn't the wind. Mara sat up, heart pounding. The shadows were shifting beyond the tree line. She strained to listen. Nothing. Then, faintly, the crunch of footsteps, slow, careful, coming closer. "Who's there?" she whispered. No answer, only silence. Then a soft splash like someone stepping into the tide, and the darkness swallowed the sound. When morning came, they found footprints in the wet sand beside the camp, too large to belong to any of them. The sun rose pale and cold, bleeding light through a curtain of mist. The island seemed different by daylight, less a paradise, more a wound carved out of the ocean. Steam rose from the jungle like the breath of something sleeping beneath it. The wreckage of the plane gleamed along the beach, broken and skeletal. Mara Jensen watched from the shoreline, her notebook clutched in one hand. It was damp, edges curled from salt water, but the pages were still usable. She began to write, partly to stay sane, partly to remember. Day 1. 6 survivors. No sign of rescue. The island feels wrong. Behind her, Sergeant Monroe dragged a wing fragment toward the camp, his muscles tight with silent anger. He had barely slept. Each sound during the night, the ocean, the rustle of palms, the soft tread in the dark had kept him on edge. Whatever made those prints, he muttered to himself. It's not done watching us. Dr. Reeves was checking Hawley's condition. The pilot's leg was broken. The skin beneath his uniform was an ugly mosaic of bruises. He drifted in and out of consciousness, mumbling coordinates that no one recognized. Reeves' calm hands moved with surgical precision, but his eyes betrayed fatigue. Lydia Clark tried to soothe her baby, though the child refused to stop crying. Eli, the student, sat nearby, staring blankly at the jungle as if trying to understand a language spoken by leaves and shadows. Hours passed. The survivors explored cautiously, following a small stream that led inland. The jungle swallowed them quickly, dense ferns, dripping vines, and the sweet, sick smell of decay. Bird calls echoed from above, sharp and mocking. They found fruit trees and gathered what they could, though Reeves warned that some might be poisonous. Further up, they discovered a ridge overlooking the island. From there, the view was vast and terrible, endless ocean. No ships, no smoke, only the broken shape of their plane below and the curve of the beach like a scar. Mara felt it then, a strange, instinctive dread. The island was too quiet. No monkeys, no visible animals, no movement except the wind. She could almost feel eyes following her. By the second night, tempers began to fray. The food was limited, the water supply uncertain. Monroe built a perimeter around the fire, marking the sand with a circle of stones. No one leaves after dark, he said. We don't know what's out there. Lydia clutched her child closer. Maybe it was just one of us, she whispered. Maybe someone wandered at night and forgot. Mara looked up from her notebook. Then, whose footprints were they? They were bigger than Monroe's. No one answered. The silence grew until the fire seemed loud, crackling in defiance. Hale stirred and groaned in his sleep. His lips moved, forming words that only Reeves could hear. Not alone, never alone. Later that night, Mara woke to the sound of water dripping. Her first thought was rain, but the air was dry. The fire had burned down to embers. In the dim light, she saw movement. Reeves bent over Hawley's body, his hands trembling. What are you doing? She whispered. He didn't respond at first. Then he turned slightly, eyes wide and unfocused. He's cold, Reeves murmured. Too cold. Hawley's chest was still. His skin had a bluish pallor. Dead. Monroe woke at the sound of Mara's gasp and rushed over. What happened? Reeves only shook his head. His pulse stopped. No signs of trauma, but Mara's gaze caught something on the pilot's arm, a faint mark near the wrist, shaped like a spiral, etched deep and red. It wasn't there yesterday. No one spoke for a long time. The baby began to cry again, shrill and sharp in the silence. Monroe finally said, "We bury him at sunrise." Morning came heavy with heat. They dug a grave near the tree line, the sand collapsing with every movement. Mara stood apart, her notebook against her chest. She wanted to write about Hale, the way he fought the storm, the steadiness in his voice, but the words refused to come. When they lowered the body, the wind shifted suddenly. The palms swayed, whispering in unison, and for a moment she thought she heard a voice within the wind itself. A low, rhythmic sound, almost like chanting. She turned to the jungle. Nothing moved, but the feeling was back, that crawling sense of being watched. Monroe followed her gaze. You feel it too, he said quietly. Mara nodded. Somewhere deep in the trees, something exhaled. By the third morning, the island had turned on them. What once looked like sunlight now felt like a spotlight, burning every exposed inch of skin. The sea was a blinding sheet of glass. The jungle whispered, but the meaning behind its voice was lost to them. When Mara awoke, she immediately noticed something wrong. The crates of supplies they pulled from the wreckage were open. Food wrappers scattered in the sand like feathers after a kill. The few bottles of water they had left were gone. She called out to the others. Within minutes, everyone was gathered around the mess. Monroe's expression darkened. Who the hell did this? Eli lifted his hands defensively. I didn't touch anything, I swear. Lydia clutched her baby, rocking back and forth. We were all asleep. How could anyone just steal everything? Reeves knelt, inspecting the sand. His face turned pale. It wasn't just taken. Look at the tracks. Mara followed his gaze. Footprints bare, uneven, deep in some places. Light in others led away from the camp and vanished toward the tree line. Not one of us, Reeves whispered. Too long a stride, a chill ran through Mara's spine. They searched the perimeter for hours, moving carefully through the thickening jungle. The air smelled of rot and salt. At times, Mara thought she heard breathing just behind her, but when she turned, only leaves swayed. Eli found something near the stream, a torn piece of clothing tangled in vines. It looked like fabric from a flight jacket, same color, same stitching, but it was clean, no blood, no dirt, almost as if someone had placed it there. They followed the stream deeper until the trees grew darker, their roots twisted like knotted fingers, and then they saw it on a smooth stretch of sand near the water's edge. The words were written in red. He is among us. The letters were crude, uneven, dripping. Mara froze. Is that? Reeves crouched, touching the edge of a letter. Blood, he said softly. Human. Lydia let out a sob and pressed her face into her child's shoulder. Monroe straightened, his jaw set. Someone's trying to break us. This is meant to scare us. Whoever did it is one of us. No, Mara said, voice trembling. No one could have done this without waking the rest. There were no sounds last night. Reeves looked up at her, eyes hollow. Unless we weren't meant to wake. The jungle stirred as if in response. They carried the news back to camp in silence. By nightfall, trust had evaporated. Monroe kept his rifle close, salvaged from a supply crate that had washed ashore 2 days earlier. He cleaned it methodically, as if ritual could drive away the unease. Mara sat by the fire, writing in her journal. Her handwriting trembled slightly, the ink blotting with sweat. The message was written in blood. We are not alone. Or worse, we are. The firelight caught something metallic near the edge of camp. She moved closer and saw a small object half buried in the sand. A watch. Its glass cracked. It was Hawley's, but he'd been buried miles from here. Her breath hitched. Monroe, she called, but when she turned, the soldier was gone. The jungle loomed beyond, black and alive. She didn't realize she'd fallen asleep until a sound woke her, a sharp crack, like a branch snapping under weight. The fire was nearly dead. Reeves was nowhere in sight. Lydia and her baby slept fitfully under a piece of torn fuselage. Then she saw movement. At the edge of the dying firelight stood a shape. Tall, motionless, watching. Mara froze, unable to breathe. The figure stepped forward slowly, 1 foot, then another, and the flicker of light revealed a face smeared with mud and streaked with blood. Monroe. His voice was hoarse. Reeves is gone. Her mind struggled to process the words. Gone. What do you mean? His bed's empty. The footprints lead inland. He took one of the knives. They stared at each other, the firelight twisting between them like a living thing. Behind them, the baby began to cry again, a fragile sound in the immensity of night. Somewhere out in the jungle, something answered. Not human, low, guttural, almost mocking. And when morning came, the message in the sand had changed. The letters were fresh again, but this time, beneath the original words, another line had appeared, shorter, uneven, smeared by fingers. He watches at night. The fourth dawn came with no wind. The air was thick, unmoving, as if the island itself were holding its breath. The sea stretched flat and silver under the sun, reflecting the wreckage like a mirror. Mara woke to the sound of waves and realized something was missing. The crying, Lydia's baby silent. She sat up quickly, heart hammering, but the mother was still there, holding the child close, rocking with empty eyes. The baby was asleep, pale, thin. Across the camp, Monroe paced the shoreline, rifle slung over his shoulder. His face looked harder now, drawn by exhaustion and suspicion. He hadn't slept. Still no sign of Reeves. Mara asked quietly. Monroe shook his head. I tracked him for a mile. His footprints led to the ridge, then just stopped. No body, no blood. like he walked into the sea or disappeared into the air. Eli stirred from where he'd been lying under the shade of a wing. Maybe he wanted to leave, he murmured. People break out here. Maybe he went mad. Mad doesn't make you vanish, Monroe said. Mara looked toward the jungle. The trees swayed faintly, though there was no wind. Or maybe he didn't leave alone. They decided to search again before noon. The heat pressed down like a physical weight, and every step into the jungle felt like walking into the lungs of something alive. Flies hovered over the half-buried remains of a fish near the shore one they hadn't caught. The trail twisted upward toward the ridge. Halfway there, Lydia gasped. On the trunk of a palm, drawn in something dark and crusted, was a symbol, a spiral, identical to the mark they'd seen on Hawley's arm. Monroe touched it, then wiped his fingers on the sand. Blood again. Eli frowned. Why would Reeves leave this? What does it mean? Mara's gaze lingered on the symbol. The spiral seemed to pulse faintly, as if reacting to their presence. It's not just a mark, she said quietly. It's a message. They reached the ridge by midday. The view stretched endlessly, ocean, sky, and the smoking remains of the crash below. For a long time, no one spoke. Then Mara saw something glinting between the rocks. She knelt, brushing away the sand. It was Reeves' medical ID tag, slick with something dark. Nearby, wedged into a crevice, was his notebook. She opened it. The first few pages were notes on injuries, treatments, routine. But further in, the handwriting changed. The words grew frantic, the lines uneven. The island isn't empty. The symbols appear after nightfall. I've seen them before years ago, in the agency's files. This place was marked, experiment site, Echo Protocol. Mara's pulse quickened. What agency? She whispered. Monroe leaned closer, reading over her shoulder. What the hell, this? But the last page was torn out. By the time they returned to camp, the sun was sinking, casting the sky in molten gold. The fire pit had gone cold. Someone had moved their things, bags, blankets, even the food they'd gathered that morning. Eli stood staring at the sand, his voice barely audible. It's like someone's watching us, waiting for us to leave camp. Mara turned toward the jungle. The shadows between the trees seemed deeper now, almost liquid. Maybe they don't wait for us to leave, she said softly. Maybe they come closer when we stay still. That night, Monroe insisted on guard shifts. He sat near the fire, rifle in his lap, eyes scanning the tree line. The moon rose pale and swollen over the sea. For a while, all was quiet until a faint sound drifted from the jungle, a voice, low, whispering, familiar. Monroe stiffened. It was Reeves. He stood, flashlight cutting through the dark. Reeves, where are you? The voice came again, closer now. Kyle, help me. He followed it past the perimeter stones, deeper into the shadows. The sound wove between the trees like smoke. Then silence. When Mara woke just before dawn, the rifle lay abandoned near the fire. Monroe was gone. They found him hours later near the ridge, lying on his back, eyes open to the sky. No wounds, no struggle. Just that same mark burned into his forearm, the spiral, darker than before. And beneath his body, carved into the sand with trembling hands, were two words, "IT's inside." That evening, as the sun fell into the sea, Mara opened her journal again. But when she turned the page, she froze. The last two entries, the handwriting wasn't hers. He took the doctor. He took the soldier. Next, he'll come for the girl with the notebook. The ink was still wet. The fifth day began with silence so deep it felt unnatural. The ocean was motionless, the jungle mute. Even the wind had deserted them. Mara sat near the fire pit, staring into gray ashes. The heat had long died out, but she didn't move. Lydia hummed a lullaby under her breath, trying to calm her baby, though her voice shook with exhaustion. Eli was the only one still searching through the debris of the camp, muttering to himself, "To gone now Reeves and Monroe. The soldier who promised protection, the doctor who promised reason. Both gone without sound." Mara opened her notebook again. The ink from the strange entry had bled into the next page, staining her notes. He took the soldier. Next, he'll come for the girl with the notebook. Her hands trembled. She wanted to tear the page out, but something in her refused, as if removing it would make the words true. Eli, she said softly, you found anything? He shook his head. Just more of the same junk. Metal, plastic, things that shouldn't have survived the crash. He held up a small, rusted compass. Its glass was cracked, but the needle still moved, spinning endlessly, unable to find north. It's broken, he muttered. Mara stared at it. Or maybe it's the island that's broken. By midday, the heat was unbearable. They decided to move inland again, toward higher ground. Eli led, machete in hand, cutting through thick vines that clung to his clothes. The jungle air was damp, metallic, filled with the scent of decay. As they climbed, Mar noticed something strange: the sun's position. It hadn't moved. It hung directly above them, frozen in a sky that refused to change. Time, she realized, was no longer behaving. When they reached the clearing at the top of the hill, the sight stole her breath. A circle of stones had been laid in the sand, perfect, symmetrical, deliberate. Inside the circle, dozens of symbols had been carved, spirals, intersecting lines, strange runes that glowed faintly even under daylight. Lydia gasped. Who would do this? Eli stepped forward cautiously. Maybe the island isn't just alive. Maybe it remembers. Mara crouched, tracing one of the spirals with her finger. It pulsed faintly beneath her touch, like a heartbeat. Suddenly, the air shimmered. The world flickered. For a moment, the trees around them changed, their trunks darker, their shapes distorted. And in that flash, she saw people, dozens of them, scientists, soldiers, standing within the same circle. Years ago, their voices overlapped in a chaotic murmur. Then, as quickly as it began, it vanished. The clearing was empty again. Eli stumbled back, eyes wide. What the hell was that? Echo Protocol, Mara whispered. Reeves mentioned it. Maybe this is what he meant. This island, this circle, it's replaying something that happened here. As dusk fell, they returned to camp, but the place no longer looked familiar. The fire pit was gone. The wreckage had shifted closer to the trees. Even the shoreline seemed shorter, as if the sea had crept inland while they were away. It's changing, Lydia said weakly. The island is moving. Mara couldn't answer. Her head ached. Time felt wrong. She wrote in her notebook again, desperate to anchor her thoughts. The sun doesn't set. The compass spins. The stones remember. When she looked up, Eli was gone. She turned toward the jungle and saw a flicker of movement, his silhouette, walking toward the water, slow and steady, like in a trance. Eli, she shouted. He didn't turn. She ran after him, sand flying beneath her feet. The waves glowed faintly, an unnatural silver light. Eli stopped at the edge of the surf, staring into the horizon. Do you hear it? He whispered. They're calling. Who? The others. The ones before us. Before she could reach him, he stepped forward and the ocean swallowed him whole. No struggle, no sound, just gone. Mara fell to her knees, gasping. When she looked down, she realized her notebook was open in the sand beside her. New words had appeared, written in the same strange hand. For remain, the sea takes the willing. That night, the air grew cold. Lydia built a small fire and rocked her baby until both of them fell asleep. Mara sat alone, the light flickering across her face. She thought of Reeves' warning, Monroe's mark, Eli's calm surrender. She turned a page in her notebook. It was blank except for one faint phrase at the bottom. So light it looked like it had been written from inside the paper itself. The circle waits for you. She looked up. The jungle was silent, and somewhere, faintly carried on the wind, came a voice that sounded like her own, whispering her name. The night came like a suffocating blanket. The waves lapped quietly against the shore, too quiet, as if the ocean itself were holding its breath. Mara sat close to the dying fire, rocking back and forth, her notebook open on her knees. Every page felt heavier than the last, filled with words she didn't remember writing, yet somehow knew were true. From the jungle came a whisper, not the wind, not the rustle of leaves, but a voice soft, deliberate, impossible to place. Rachel. Rachel. She froze. Her own name, carried on the night like a thread pulling her into the darkness. Who's there? She whispered. No answer. Then the fire flickered and danced, shadows stretching like living fingers. The trees swayed unnaturally, and in the reflection of a small pool nearby, she saw something move, someone walking along the shore. But the figure wasn't any of them. Not Rachel. Not Mason. Not Lisa. Someone else. Mara stood, heart hammering. Tom, Mason, Lisa, they appeared instantly, though moments before she had been completely alone. Their eyes were wide, pale under the firelight. Tom shook his head. It's the wind, he said. The jungle. It plays tricks. But Mara knew the truth. She had seen the figure, and in the distance, the sea shimmered with unnatural silver light, as though the horizon itself were bleeding. Suddenly, the world shifted. The beach, the wreckage, the trees, they were the same, yet subtly wrong. The fire pit moved, closer to the water. The sand beneath her feet seemed softer, almost alive. She blinked and saw Blake again, the soldier, alive and unhurt, standing at the edge of the water, staring at her with empty eyes. Blake, Mara whispered. He didn't respond. He raised a hand slowly, pointing toward the jungle. Then, in a blink, he was gone. The day returned, but the sun didn't rise. It hung in the sky, swollen and pale, casting long, twisted shadows. The group moved inland, seeking shade, seeking reason, but every step felt like déjà vu. They passed the same tree, the same fallen log, the same pool of water over and over. Mason began muttering to himself, counting steps, tracing the same path repeatedly, as if trying to anchor reality. We're moving in circles. I've been here before. You're not imagining it, Mara said. Something's replaying itself, like time. Isn't moving right? Lisa clutched her baby. It's the island, she said, voice shaking. It's alive. It wants us to see it, to know it. Carter, the doctor, who had been taken once and returned as a memory, appeared next, crouched near the stream. But his face was pale, hollow. You don't understand, he said. We've been here before. All of us, dying, over and over. The island, it traps us. Mara's stomach dropped. What do you mean, dying? Carter's eyes were empty, haunted. Every time someone dies, it repeats. Every time we fail, the island remembers. The spiral, the circle, it's the pattern. None of us are original. By evening, the ocean itself began to hum, low and constant, vibrating in her bones. The waves seemed to move differently now, curling back upon themselves, repeating the same motions as though mocking the survivors. Mara's thoughts blurred. She felt herself slipping into the cycle, memories mixing with visions. She saw Blake's death again, Holly's spiral mark, Reeves' vanishing body. The words on her notebook rearranged themselves. The circle waits for you. For remain. The sea takes the willing. And then she heard it soft, deliberate, a chorus of voices from the water, calling names, whispering promises, urging her forward. Mara turned toward the sea. Shapes moved beneath the surface, human, familiar, yet impossible, ghostly silhouettes of those who had already died, or who would die. She realized, with a chill that froze her blood, that the island was showing them themselves, past, present, and future all colliding. Tom stumbled beside her. We have to leave, he said, voice cracking. Leave? Mara whispered. We can't. Not yet. Not if the cycle keeps us here. The sun finally sank, but darkness didn't come. The island remained bathed in silver light, eternal, unyielding. Mara opened her notebook. The pages were no longer blank. Every entry she had written and hadn't written now formed a single, horrifying message. The last survivor will forget. The island remembers. The cycle continues. The wind whispered her name again. This time, she answered. And the sea laughed. The fire sputtered and coughed, fighting against the humid night air. Its light was weak, flickering shadows across the jungle like spirits dancing on the edge of reality. Mara, clutching her notebook tightly, felt the oppressive weight of the island pressing down on her. Did anyone hear that? Lisa whispered, holding her baby close. Her voice trembled. Carter, the doctor, who had reappeared hours earlier as if the island had spat him out from the shadows, shook his head. It's probably nothing, just the trees. But Mara wasn't convinced. The shadows moved differently tonight. Sharper, deliberate. Something or someone was out there, watching. Suddenly, a loud crack split the air. The fire flickered violently and then went out completely. Darkness swallowed the camp. Mara's heart raced. Tom, Mason, she called into the night. No answer, only the rhythmic whisper of the ocean. Then, from the jungle, a scream high, sharp, terrible. Lisa clutched her baby tighter and fell to the sand. Mara ran toward the sound, the ground wet beneath her feet. She saw Mason first. He lay sprawled among the roots, his body twisted unnaturally. Blood pooled beneath him, a dark contrast to the pale sand. His eyes were open, wide with terror, staring at nothing. A spiral mark like the one on Hale, like the one on Monroe, was carved into his chest. No! Mara screamed, falling to her knees beside him. From behind her, Carter appeared, his face pale in the darkness. We're not safe, he whispered. It's inside the island. It's choosing. Tom stumbled toward them, holding a makeshift torch. His face was grim. We have to move. Now, if we stay here, we're next. Mara shook her head, tears blurring her vision. Who is doing this? Tom's jaw tightened. I don't know. But I don't think it's just the island. The group hurried inland, using the shadows as cover. The jungle seemed to stretch endlessly, the trees bending in ways that should have been impossible. Mara's notebook had fallen open in the sand, and when she picked it up, she noticed something new. Entries written in someone else's hand, detailing the very path they were taking, the exact sequence of deaths that had already begun. Lisa clung to her, sobbing. It's watching us. It's following us. We can't escape. Carter tried to calm her. Stay close. Don't panic. We stick together. But the island didn't follow rules. By the next morning, they found Holly's body again, broken, marked, as if the island had decided he needed another death. His eyes stared toward the sea, lifeless, and a new spiral mark had been etched deeper into his wrist. Mara felt bile rise in her throat. Why keep killing us? She whispered. Carter shook his head. Because it remembers. Because it chooses the order, the spiral. It's the pattern. It's deciding who dies next. Tom's hands clenched into fists. Then we fight it. You can't fight the island, Mara said. We're part of it now. We've already been written into its cycle. We're trapped. Night fell again. They attempted to light a fire, hoping for warmth and security. But the first spark went out as if the air itself rejected it. Shadows stretched across their faces. Something moved in the darkness, a tall figure. Silent, deliberate. Lisa screamed as the figure approached. Tom swung the torch, illuminating Carter. But it wasn't him. Not really. His eyes were blank, and his mouth moved, forming words in a whisper. For remain. The cycle continues. The fire fades, and before they could react, the figure vanished. Mara's chest heaved. Tom knelt beside her, voice barely audible. We can't trust anyone, not even ourselves. The island was alive, and the rules had changed. By the time the first light of dawn touched the trees, 2 more were gone, Mason and Hale, leaving Mara, Lisa, and Tom. The sand bore new marks, fresh spirals carved in the blood of their fallen companions. Mara looked out at the endless ocean, her mind spinning. The notebook, the island, the cycle. She could almost hear it laughing, whispering, pulling them deeper into its spiral, and she knew, without question, that no one would survive without remembering and forgetting exactly what the island wanted them to. The 4th night after the deaths felt longer than any day before. The air was thick, suffocating, carrying a metallic scent of blood and salt. Mara sat hunched near the last remnants of a fire, her notebook open but useless. The wind whispered her name again, soft and persistent, as if the island itself were drawing her into its spiral. Tom paced nearby, the torchlight flickering across his face. Shadows danced in the jungle, forming shapes that were almost human, almost familiar. Lisa cradled her baby, wide-eyed and trembling. I can't do this anymore. she whispered. I can't. Mara held up a hand, silencing her. We have to. If we don't survive the night, the island wins completely. Tom stopped pacing, jaw tight. Do you realize what's happening? The island. It's not just killing. It's testing us. It knows our past. It knows things about us. Things we thought were buried. Mara's gaze hardened. What do you mean? Tom exhaled, reluctant but desperate. I saw it in the shadow's earlier visions. Echoes. It showed me something about us. About all of us. Rachel, Carter, Monroe. They weren't just passengers. We were connected to him, the agent, the one carrying the files. Each of us had dealings we'd rather forget. And the island. It uses that. It twists it into this cycle. Forces us to confront it or die. Lisa's eyes went wide. Are you saying one of us is? Not yet. Mara interrupted, voice sharp. But it could be. That's why the spiral marks keep appearing. Why the fire keeps fading. The island is watching how we react. The storm rolled in suddenly. Dark clouds racing over the horizon. The ocean hissed as if warning them. Mara's notebook flapped in the wind. She opened it and noticed new entries written in the same strange hand she had seen before. Tom was involved in the operation. Lisa had connections she can't remember. Mara, the girl with the notebook, she will hold the truth until the end. 4 remain. 3 will see each other's guilt. Her heart thudded. It knows. The shadows deepened. Something moved in the tree line, a figure. Tall, deliberate. Mara froze. Show yourself. Tom shouted. The figure emerged into the torchlight. It was Carter. But wrong. His eyes were hollow, his skin pale, streaked with mud and blood. Do you see? He whispered, voice warped. You're all the same. Chosen. The spiral tightens. Mara and Tom exchanged a glance. Suspicion and fear twisted together. We can't trust him or ourselves. Mara said quietly. Carter's eyes darted to Lisa. She doesn't know what she's capable of. None of you do. But the island remembers. The ground beneath them seemed to pulse, as if the island itself were alive. Mara realized then that it wasn't just the past haunting them, it was the present reshaping itself. Time had lost meaning. Tom stepped forward. Then we fight it. We survive together. We don't let it control us. Mara shook her head. It's not about fighting. It's about understanding. The spiral is a pattern. It predicts behavior, tests loyalty, exposes secrets, and it doesn't forget. We have to use that. As the storm broke, rain slashing across the camp, the 3 huddled together. Lightning illuminated the jungle, revealing shapes moving just beyond their vision, familiar forms from the past, passengers long gone. They were ghosts, echoes of choices they had made or avoided. Lisa whispered, I remember. Pieces. Things I did. People I lied to. Maybe that's why it's after us. Mara nodded grimly. It's using what we've buried against us. Every secret. Every connection to him, the agent. It's all part of the spiral. We're pieces in its design. The wind carried a new sound. Footsteps approaching in the mud. Uneven. Deliberate. Waiting. The island had decided the next move. Mara clutched her notebook. We have to move. Now. They ran into the jungle. Rain pounding. The spiral marks appearing in the sand behind them. With every step, Mara realized something terrifying. The island wasn't just alive, it was learning, adapting, and each revelation about their past made the spiral tighter, the trap closer. By nightfall, exhaustion and fear had twisted them. Every glance, every whisper carried suspicion. They no longer knew who they could trust. The island had turned them inward, toward themselves, toward the secrets they had tried to forget, and somewhere deep in the darkness, a voice, soft, cruel, familiar, chanted their names in unison. 4 remain. 3 will betray. 1 will forget. The spiral tightened. By the 9th day, the island had stripped them bare, not just of supplies, but of trust, sanity, and memory. Mara, Tom, and Lisa moved like shadows, each step measured, each glance suspicious. The spiral marks were everywhere now, etched into rocks, trees, sand, reminders that the island's pattern was tightening. The storm from the previous night had passed, leaving the air thick and metallic, heavy with the scent of salt and decay. The ocean glimmered under the faint light, but it was cold, unnatural, and Mara sensed it watching. Where are we going? Lisa whispered, clutching her child tightly. Her eyes were wide, haunted. Mara's gaze scanned the jungle, every tree and shadow seeming alive. The ridge, she said. There's higher ground. If we can get there, maybe we can see. Maybe we can understand the pattern before it's too late. Tom nodded, silent. His jaw was set, muscles tight. Mara noticed the tremor in his hand as he gripped a makeshift spear. They climbed slowly, the ground slick from rain. Every step felt repetitive, as if they had walked this path 1,000 times before. And then they reached the clearing and froze. Blake's spiral mark glowed faintly in the moonlight, carved into the sand, but Blake was nowhere to be seen. Carter emerged from the shadows, his face pale, a twisted smile on his lips. You thought the cycle would spare you. Foolish, he said. The island doesn't choose randomly. It rewards understanding and punishes betrayal. Mara's heart raced. What do you mean? Carter, you're supposed to be. I've been here before, he interrupted. This is not my first time. The agent's files, my past. The island shows me everything, and I'm not alone. Lisa sobbed. He's lying. Don't trust him. But Mara hesitated. Carter knew something they all did, and the island's spiral marks seemed to respond to their fear, glowing brighter. Suddenly, the ground shifted beneath them. The sand bubbled like water. The jungle swayed unnaturally. Tom yelped as a hidden root snagged his foot. Mara fell forward. From the darkness, Blake appeared alive, unhurt, eyes hollow and glowing faintly. He raised a hand, pointing directly at Tom. Tom's spear dropped. Blake. What? The island's whisper grew louder, carrying all their names in unison. Mara felt her mind unravel. It's choosing again, she muttered. Blake lunged at Tom. Tom stumbled, but managed to knock Blake aside. In the chaos, Mara realized something terrifying. Carter had vanished, and Lisa's eyes were filled with an unfamiliar resolve. It's not just the island, Mara thought. It's us. It's making us betray each other. A scream split the air. Blake's body lay twisted in the sand, a spiral mark carved into his chest. Tom fell to his knees beside him, staring in disbelief. Lisa stepped forward slowly, holding a makeshift blade. We can't wait, she said. We have to survive. Whoever the island wants, we do it ourselves. Mara's mind raced. Lisa, wait, stop, don't add to late. A flash of steel, a struggle. Tom fell back, bleeding, and Mara realized she was now the only one unmarked, untouched. The wind shifted. The ocean roared. And then, above the ridge, they saw it, the helicopter, a whirring, blinding light slicing through the night sky. Mara ran toward it, leaving Lisa behind, leaving Tom behind, leaving the spiral, the island, and the cycle itself. As she was lifted into the cabin, the island's whispers faded, but not entirely. The pilot shouted, asking if she was alone. Mara turned, realizing she didn't remember her own name, her own past. Everything was hazy. Who am I? She thought, staring at the black waves below. The helicopter lifted higher. The island shrank beneath her, vast, alive, endless. And in the distance, the spiral marks glowed faintly in the sand, waiting for the next cycle. The helicopter's engines roared, slicing through the thick, humid night air. Mara clung to the seat, her body trembling not from fear, but from the disorienting haze of memory and confusion. Every detail of the island pressed against her mind, the spiral marks, the whispers, the shadows that had moved as if alive. She looked around the cabin, empty. No Lisa, no Tom, no other survivors, only herself. And she realized something chilling. She could not remember who she had been before the crash. Her name, her past, everything was gone, as if the island had claimed it along with the others. The last survivor, she thought. The island always leaves one. The pilot glanced at her. You're lucky, kid. Only one of you made it. Mara's lips moved, but no words came. The notebook, clutched tightly in her hands, felt heavy, alive, pulsing faintly. She opened it, the pages filled with her handwriting, but also with handwriting that wasn't hers. The final entries glowed faintly, as if revealing themselves only now. The cycle ends when only one remains. The island remembers everything. The past, The guilt, the secrets. She will forget herself, but know the truth. Mara stared at the words. Slowly, fragments of memory flickered, blinding flashes of the agent, the files, the spiral marks, the deaths, the betrayals. The island had shown them everything, forced them to confront it, and only by surviving had she earned clarity. She remembered now. The crash was no accident. The agent had carried dangerous files, connecting them all in ways they had long buried. And the island. The island was a trap, a living record of human failure, punishing and testing those who were tied to him. She thought of Lisa, of Tom, of Carter, of Blake, Mason, Hale, Reeves. Each had been swallowed by the island's cycle, leaving her alone, but enlightened. I am the one who knows, she thought, staring out at the dark waves below. The island shrank beneath her as the helicopter lifted higher. Its whispers faded but did not disappear entirely, leaving only a faint echo of its power. Mara closed her eyes, letting the wind whip across her face. Memories of betrayal, fear, death, and secrets crowded her mind. But amidst them, a single understanding emerged. The spiral, the marks, the cycle. They were not just tests of survival. They were lessons in truth, in confronting the past without evasion. When she finally opened her eyes, the sun was rising over the Pacific. The waves glimmered gold, and the island lay behind her, small, mysterious, eternal. She was free, but she would never be the same. The pilot spoke again, breaking her reverie. We'll be at the mainland in an hour. You'll be safe. Safe. Mara echoed the words silently, but in her chest, a part of her heart remained with the island, in its spiral, in its memory. She had survived, but she had lost herself in the process, and yet, she knew the truth now. The island was never just a place. It was a mirror. It was a reckoning. And I am its last witness. The helicopter ascended higher, leaving the endless green and silver behind. Mara looked down one final time at the island, its secrets etched in every shadow and mark, and whispered to herself, barely audible over the engines, "Goodbye, and thank you."